This episode of D-Pad will take a look at this year's E3. Which one of the big three companies had the best showing? Which company had the worst showing? All this and more coming up right here on this episode of the D-Pad.
Brad Davis present.
Alright, hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of the D-Pad. I'm your host Brad Davis, and you're watching a show that's all about video games. This is a special episode of the D-Pad since we'll be looking back at E3 2014, looking at each presentation for the big three companies, Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo, and I will be saying my opinions about what they showed as well as how well they presented what they had at their shows, alright? So there's a lot of stuff to talk about, so let's get right into it. The first presentation I'll be talking about is Microsoft, and I'll be starting in a few seconds. Then you can see there, you can choose what you want to see if you want to not see me discuss all three companies. So Microsoft starting in a few seconds, then you see Sony there, you can skip in the video or just click right where Sony is if you have the annotations on, and you can do the same for Nintendo, which is right below Sony there. Alright, so let's get started. Alright, well, Microsoft started off their conference by showing off Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. The trailer looked really good in terms of the graphics, so you could tell that the game isn't being made on the same Call of Duty engine that they had last gen and that Activision's been using for the past, 7-8 years. The game looks really good. Graphically, it reminded me of Killzone due to all the particle effects and all the sci-fi futuristic weapons and enemies, and the game looks good, and it seems like a lot of people are more interested in this Call of Duty than they were in any of the previous Call of Duties for the past 3 or 4 years. So it'll be interesting to see how well this new Call of Duty does for Activision. After this, they showed off Forza Horizon 2. They showed off a new trailer for the game. The game looks great. I'm really looking forward to playing the game. Open world racer, and it looks great. The very first Forza Horizon was a really good game, and this just looks like a step up in all areas: presentation, graphics, gameplay, everything. So this game should be really good, and I really have high hopes for it. And what they showed off at the conference, at Microsoft's conference, looked really promising. Another game that got a new trailer was Evolve, the 4 versus 1 shooter, sci-fi shooter. This game looks good too. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this game is. Should get good reviews. The trailer they showed looked good, and again, it should be a good game, but we'll see what happens. And Microsoft kept on bringing things to multi-class, at least in terms of showing them off. The next trailer they showed after Evolve was Assassin's Creed Unity, and this game looks good. It looks more open in comparison to the previous Assassin's Creed games. More people, more crowds you could hide inside of, and overall it just was like a step up in terms of in terms of the Assassin's Creed series, because this game is being made for the new consoles in mind. So due to that, it seems like this game will be a good step up above all the other Assassin's Creed games that we've been playing recently. And it also seems like the game graphically will be really good too. It looks like a good step up. In the footage that they showed during Microsoft's conference, they showed off a little co-op session, 4 players, and it looked interesting. I don't know if a lot of people want to play Assassin's Creed that way, but Either way, it's something new to the game, and I think that people will at least try it out. So it'll be interesting to see how well people like these new co-op missions in this upcoming Assassin's Creed game. After that, they showed off Dragon Age Inquisition. It looks like a good game. I'm not really interested in RPGs that much, but a lot of people seem to be excited for the game, so it was cool that Microsoft showed that off. Then after this, they went back to showing off exclusives, and the exclusive they showed off after Dragon Age was Sunset Overdrive. This game looks great. Said it before in my previous videos that this is one of my most anticipated exclusives coming out this year. It looks like a mix of Project Radio and Crackdown, and it just looks great. I mean, just everything about the game just screams fun. Like, they made the game without any, I guess you could say, any restrictions on what should be in the game in terms of realism. Like, they just said, why, even think about realism when we want to make a fun game. And it seems like Insomniac is really going to make a really fun game here with Sunset Overdrive, and I can't wait to play it, and I can't wait to just see how it is as a whole in terms of how the game is, how the world is, how the missions are. Just everything about the game looks really fun, and the fluid movement from object, you just grinding and then hopping on buildings. Everything about the game looks great, and I really can't wait for this game to release in October. After they showed off Sunset Overdrive, they showed off the new DLC for Dead Rising 3. This new DLC is a throwback to old Capcom games. I can't even remember what the DLC is called because it's mocking the whole Street Fighter sequels, or remakes if you want to call them, since there really weren't sequels, they were just remakes of Street Fighter 2. I think it's called like Dead Rising 3 Hyper Alpha Turbo Edition 2 or something like that. I can't really think of the whole name for the DLC. But it seems like a lot of Dead Rising fans were really interested in the new DLC. The DLC was out, well, it has been out for a couple weeks now, and it seems like people are liking it. So I guess Microsoft showing off a new DLC was a good thing, even though I'm not interested in Dead Rising at all. Then after they showed off Dead Rising, they went to Fable Legends, and again, I'm not really a big RPG fan, so I really wasn't interested in Fable Legends or just the Fable series period, so them showing it off didn't really do anything for me. But I guess Fable fans really liked what they saw at Microsoft's conference, and it seems like Fable Legends will do good with Fable fans. At the conference, Microsoft also announced Phantom Dust. It's a original Xbox IP that's being, I guess, remade, and I never played the original Phantom Dust, so I don't know what the game is about at all. But people who have played it said it's a good game, and it seems like it's a cult classic in terms of that, since not many people have played the original Phantom Dust for the original Xbox. So it's good to see Microsoft going back to the original Xbox IPs and remaking them, and it's going to be interesting to see if they'll remake any of their other original Xbox IPs from that era, the 2001 to 2005 original Xbox era. Project Spark got a new trailer. This trailer was pretty funny because it had Conquer in it, and people went crazy because they thought that what Microsoft was showing was a new Conquer game, but it was actually Conquer being implemented into Project Spark, and it kind of gave off the impression as if Microsoft was saying, "Hey, you guys want a new Conquer? Make it yourself. Go ahead." And it was kind of, it came off kind of like a troll in a way, but I guess it's cool that Conquer will be in Project Spark, and it's going to be interesting to see what people do with him, if they make their own kind of Conquer games. But overall, it just seemed like a pretty big troll in my opinion. Microsoft showed off a game called Ori and the Blind Forest, a new indie title, and there was messages, Phil Spencer stated on his Twitter a few, I guess you say weeks or months back, that Xbox will be getting new IPs for this year, and people didn't know if that meant new AAA retail IPs or new indie games, and it seemed like he meant new indie games. But even though this is an indie game, this game, still looks good. There's many indie games that do look great, so there's nothing against indie games when I said that. I just meant that in terms of whether or not the announcement would be a really huge megaton, or if it will be, just a indie game, digital download title. But as I said before, this game looks good. I'm a big fan of platformers, and this game reminds me of Dust. And overall, it just looks great. The art style with the lights and the shadows, foreground and background details, looks like a really interesting game, and it's going to be interesting to see how the game is when it releases this year. It wouldn't be a Microsoft Xbox conference without Halo, and after they showed off Ori, they showed off the Master Chief Collection that's coming out this year in the fall, in November, and this collection is a great value. This news about this collection wasn't as surprising since details were released about it, or at least said about it, a few weeks before Microsoft's E3 conference. But it was still great to see Microsoft confirm it, because this is, again, a great value. You get in 4 Halo games, Halo 1, 2, 3, and 4, along with the Halo 5 beta. And those 4 Halo games will be in 1080p, 60 frames per second, all the multiplayer maps, and you're getting all of that for $60. It's a great value, and I think the last time that there's been such a great value for a compilation collection was with Super Mario All-Stars back on the Super Nintendo. I can't remember there being so much content in a remake, a collector's edition, or excuse me, a compilation of a series being a remake of a series. And this just looks like it'll be a great game to have if you're a Halo fan. And I think that this game will be probably the top selling exclusive for either the PS4 or Xbox One this fall, due to it having the Halo name and just due to it being such a great value. And Microsoft will be really silly if they don't put this in a bundle, if they don't make a bundle for this, because this will definitely sell consoles. While I don't think it will sell like a new Halo like Halo 5 would, I still think that it will be a reason why people will get an Xbox this fall or holiday season. And it just, the value can't be the value. I mean, $60 for more than 100 maps and 4 games being redone in 1080p. It's, you can't really diss this compilation remake, and it's amazing the amount of value that you're getting in this collector's, well, excuse me, I keep saying collector's edition, because it feels like it should be a collector's edition because you're getting so much stuff inside the game, but it's not. It's a normal game, normal collection. So just the value you're getting out of this is just great, and I think that a lot of people, at least a lot of Xbox One owners currently and future Xbox One owners, will get it, especially since I'm sure that this game will continue on selling for months and even years. Even when Halo 5 releases, I'm pretty sure that the Halo collection, well, Master Chief Collection, will still be selling to people who like the previous Halos before 343 started working on the game, people who like the Bungie Halos. So it's going to be interesting to see how well this does this holiday season. And speaking of Halo 5, they showed off Halo 5 Guardians, a new trailer coming out in 2015. It's going to be a big game. They didn't really need to show a trailer for it. I feel that it would have been better if they showed off some gameplay, but I guess the game is still in its early stages, so they couldn't show off any gameplay. But the first Halo on Xbox One is definitely going to be huge. It's the first Halo game, well, new Halo game this generation, so it's going to get a lot of press and hype just due to that. So it's going to be really interesting to see how well Halo 5 does in 2015. Then after this, they showed off a indie showcase of the upcoming indie Xbox One games, ID at Xbox. And last year, Sony showed off indie games on stage, so it seemed as if Microsoft was copying that from Sony last year. Because while, we knew the indie games were coming to the Xbox One this year, I don't think many people expected the indie games to have that great of a presence in Microsoft's E3 conference for this year. But they did, show off some indie games. I think the best indie game that they showed off in that, quick trailer that they had was a game called Cuphead. This game looks like a cartoon from 1930s. Looks like a platformer, and it just looks great. Just the art style alone makes me really want to play it. It's amazing what these indie companies and independent developers are just doing for the games. I mean, just so many unique ideas and art styles that you're not getting from the AAA games, and it's just bringing such a great variety. And I really can't wait to play Cuphead, and I will be following the game throughout all these months, to see, new videos, new levels, see what the game is about exactly, since not that many details have been released about Cuphead. But it's definitely probably my most anticipated indie game outside of No Man's Sky. After this, they show off a new Tomb Raider game called Rise of the Tomb Raider, and it had Lara Croft talking to, I guess, a psychiatrist, and it seemed interesting. It wasn't that much action, at least, in terms of gameplay. And overall, the game seems like it'll be a different experience from the previous Tomb Raider games, and it's going to be interesting to see how different it will be. What they showed off makes it seem like it will still have that Tomb Raider like action, but at the same time having more of a story based feel to the game. So it's going to be interesting to see how good this game will be when it finally releases. After Tomb Raider showed off Tom Clancy's The Division. This game looks solid. It looks like it'll be appealing to many shooter fans, but it seems different in terms of gameplay. It seems like you have to think more in terms of this game and not just run and gun like you can in other shooters. And I think it'll be interesting to see how the run and gun fans will enjoy this new Tom Clancy game, because it does seem different from a gameplay standpoint. After they showed off The Division, they showed off The Witcher 3. They showed off gameplay of it, and a lot of people enjoyed it. Again, I'm not a big RPG fan, so it didn't do much for me, but people seem to go crazy over this gameplay demo for The Witcher 3. So it's good, and I think that the game will do really well on both the Xbox One and PS4. After The Witcher 3, they showed off the new Platinum game for the Xbox One, and a new game for the Xbox One made by Platinum. It's called Scalebound. It was a CGI trailer, so there wasn't that much gameplay. Well, there wasn't any, gameplay footage. But it seems like it's a action game, and if it'll be similar to some of the previous Platinum games, like the Wonderful 101 in terms of the moves and the fast action that you can do, I will be definitely interested in playing the game. It looks interesting. I just wish they would have showed more about the game, but it seems like the game won't be coming out until at least late 2015, early 2016. So it seems like the game is a ways off, so they can't give that many details about it. But again, I'm really interested in seeing what this game is about, and definitely interested in seeing some more gameplay footage for this game. Well, at least the first gameplay footage for this game, whenever that will release. Then to end off the Microsoft conference, new Crackdown was announced. People thought that this announcement was Crackdown 3, but apparently it won't be a sequel. It will be a reboot for the Crackdown franchise, the Crackdown series. And again, this wasn't that surprising. There was always rumors about a new Crackdown coming for the Xbox One for months and even years, since I remember rumors about a new Crackdown coming for the new Xbox One back in, I want to say, early 2013. But it was still good to see that this game is being, redone or rebooted for the new Xbox One, a new generation of Xbox. And the first Crackdown was a great game. The second one wasn't good at all. So if they make this new Crackdown like the first one, I think a lot of people will be happy. And it seems like Microsoft knows that they have to make the game similar to the first one, at least in terms of critical reception that it got. So it seems like this will be a good game. It seems like this game, similar to Scalebound, won't be coming out for a while. Late 2015, early 2016 at the earliest, because it was pretty much a basic trailer, didn't show really any gameplay. But like I said before, it's good to see that Crackdown is coming to the Xbox One, at least official statement that Crackdown is coming to the Xbox One, and Crackdown fans should be happy that it's finally coming, since they've been wanting a new Crackdown for many years now. Alright, and that was Microsoft's conference. Overall, it was a solid conference. I will say though that I expected some bigger announcements, like a really huge megaton, at least one. And while, you know, Crackdown, a new version of Crackdown, or a new, I guess you could say, new entry to the Crackdown series is really exciting, it's not really a megaton, since again a lot of people were expecting a new Crackdown to be announced at this E3 for months now. But overall, like I said, it was a solid conference. It was 100% games, and that was a good thing. And before this E3 conference, I said that this E3 conference will probably be one of the most important ones for Microsoft, since it will set the tone for the Xbox One for the first half of this gen. And I will stand true to that statement, and, you know, stand by it, since I do think it set the tone for the Xbox One for the early part of this gen. And that tone is that the Xbox One is a gaming console, since that's all that they showed during this E3 conference was games. It's 100% games, and solid games too, you know. And this conference made the Xbox One seem like a true successor to the Xbox 360 in terms of gaming content. You know, just great third-party support, solid looking exclusives, solid looking indie games, you know, solid looking at new IPs coming soon to go alongside the Forza, the Halo games, the Fables. And just overall, this conference pretty much said that the Xbox One is a solid gaming console, and that's what Microsoft needed to do due to all the criticism that the Xbox One got last year, especially after the reveal, when, you know, they focused way too much on media during that console reveal. Because the reveal was bad, but their E3 was solid, since their E3 last year showed off a lot of games, and this year's E3 was similar to last year's E3, but it just had more of a, I guess you could say, a faster presentation. Like, they went from game to game faster, because last year there was some, you know, time in between in terms of the games that they showed, you know, where they were talking too much, I felt. But this year it was just game to game to game to game to game, and it was a really solid conference. But again, I was expecting a really exciting announcement, and I feel that there wasn't really any exciting announcements during this year's Microsoft E3 conference. So due to it being solid, but not having any big megaton announcements, I'm going to give Microsoft's E3 conference for 2014 a B-. Alright, now let's talk about Sony's E3 conference. Sony started off their conference by showing off Destiny. This game is going to be huge for the PS4. It's going to be a huge period, since it's a multi-platform game. And I think it's going to do well on the Xbox One and PS4, but Sony's definitely setting up the game to do better on the PS4, at least in terms of sales. Because everything they're doing in terms of presentation is basically making Destiny look like a PS4 exclusive, similar to how Microsoft and the Xbox brand treats Call of Duty. And Sony showed off a new Destiny bundle with a white PS4, and it looks really nice, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people will be getting this new bundle. I mean, I know some people who want to trade in their black PS4s for this new white Destiny PS4, so the bundle should do well too. It's amazing to see Sony treat a third-party exclusive like this, since I don't remember the last time once they treated a third-party exclusive in this fashion. Well, excuse me, not third-party exclusive, but a third-party multi-platform game in this fashion for their console. You know, giving them the bundle. You know, this is what Microsoft did was Xbox 360 last gen, and to see Sony do this with the PS4 is, I guess you could say, is kind of funny. But overall, the PS4 is the top selling console for this gen so far, and it'll probably stay at its number one spot for the whole gen. So it's not surprising to see Sony do this, especially for Destiny, which has been tied to the PS4 for, I want to say, more than a year now. Since I remember last year's E3, Destiny still had a showing at the E3 2013 conference for Sony. So overall, it's funny to see Sony treating this better than they treat their exclusives coming out this year. But still, I don't think it matters much, since this game will definitely help sell PS4s this holiday season. And it's a good move from Sony. It's a smart move from Sony to do all these deals to make Destiny seem even more like a PS4 exclusive. After this, they showed off new footage of The Order, and the footage looked good. I will say though that the footage made The Order seem more sci-fi than any of the previous footage of The Order that was, shown off in previous months and years. The Order still looks good, but it wasn't what I expected the game to be, at least based on this trailer. Since it looks more, at least to me, sci-fi now, due to the creature or whatever that was in that trailer they were fighting against. But overall, it still seems, like a really great game, really solid game. Will definitely sell PS4s to people, since it's a big PS4 exclusive, and it got bumped to 2015. It should have been released this year, but it got pushed to 2015. So it definitely helped sell PS4s next year, and it was good to see new footage of The Order at this year's E3 conference for Sony. After The Order, they showed off this game called Entwine. It kind of reminded me of Rez, since you had that kind of, I guess you could say, circular shooter, for lack of a better way to put it, with a lot of grids and whatever. I can't really explain Rez that well, but it looked like a game that was similar in style to Rez. So it looks like a interesting game. It's a new indie game, so again, Sony went back to making, at least putting indie games in the spotlight, which is, a good thing. They did it last year, and it was expected that they would do it for this year's E3 conference. So it was good to see them, do it again for this year's E3. The interesting thing about this game though was that it was available, right during the E3 conference, since it stated, hey guys, it's available right now. And while this was, announcement for an indie game, in terms of, it being available right now, I would love to see this announcement be made for bigger games, the AAA titles. How crazy would it be to see a new exclusive IP that has a lot of hype be, see a person on stage saying, hey guys, this new IP that has a lot of hype is available now on the PS4, the PSN marketplace or the Xbox Live marketplace, and you guys can download it now. That'll be really big. So hopefully we'll see an announcement like that soon, since I think that will be a pretty big megaton to have a new IP that has a lot of hype be released during the same time as the E3 conference. But at the same time, now I think about it, if they state that the new IP was coming out, it's out now during a E3 conference, it makes you wonder, how many people will be watching the E3 conference, how many people will switch on their consoles to download and play the game and move away from the conference. So maybe it's a good thing that this announcement was only for an indie game. But who knows? I would love to see an announcement like this be made for even more games, whether indie or not. After this, they showed off new DLC for Infamous Second Son, and this new DLC is called Infamous First Light, and you play as Fetch. Overall, it looks interesting, and it looks like people who liked Infamous Second Son will enjoy this new DLC. After they showed off the new DLC for Infamous Second Son, they showed off Little Big Planet 3. I don't think that many people were expecting this game to be shown at the Sony conference. They showed off a ton of gameplay. They had a long gameplay demo of this, and the gameplay demo was longer than the gameplay demos they had for the really big multi-platform or big AAA exclusives that are coming out for the PS4 this year. So I thought that was kind of weird. You know, I wasn't expecting the gameplay demo for Little Big Planet 3 to be as long as it was. But overall, it still looks good, and it looks like a lot of Little Big Planet fans will be happy with this game, especially since it's the first Little Big Planet for the PS4, even though it is going to come out for the PS3 also. After Little Big Planet 3 came a trailer for Bloodborne. As I said before, I'm not a big RPG fan, so this trailer for this game didn't really do much for me. People treated it as a really big Megaton trailer, but it really didn't do anything for me. I'm not interested in most RPGs, not interested in the Dark Souls games. So this didn't do much for me, but it was still a big announcement, and people who like the Dark Souls games will definitely be interested in Bloodborne. And it's exclusive for the PS4, so it will definitely help sell consoles for people who are Dark Souls fans. After Bloodborne came Far Cry 4, and the trailer showed off, looked good. At least, you know, a lot of people felt it looked good, especially the stuff with the elephants that got a lot of attention. But for me, what seemed, at least during the conference, what seemed like a really big announcement was when they said that you can join with friends in co-op, and those friends don't even have to have a copy of the game. And when they said that just blew my mind. I was like, how is this possible? You know, this sounds awesome. Sounds like a true next-gen feature, like a next-gen sharing feature. But after the conference, more details were given about this, and apparently what you'll be able to do is basically give your friends a code, and I believe it's the maximum amount of friends that you could give a code to is like 10, but you can give your friends a code and they'll be able to basically play the game with you, like a demo. So it's basically just you giving them a demo code for the game. But the way, you know, Sony stated it made it seem bigger, and I think that was smart, even though it might have been a bit not telling the whole truth about the, you know, what you can do about in terms of Far Cry, in terms of you know, sharing the game with your friends. You know, it's just a demo, so that doesn't seem as big as what they said it would be during the E3 conference. So they didn't say all the details about that, but I think that was a move for them to make it seem as if the news was, you know, bigger than it actually was, you know, not telling the whole truth. And while it was kind of deceptive, I feel it still worked, since it made Far Cry 4 get a lot of attention, especially on the PS4, at least during the time of the conference. So it was a smart move by Sony, and Sony isn't the first one to make a move like that during their conferences. So again, this is just, you know, the way companies are for these conferences, especially when they're in the top spot. So again, it wasn't as big as I expected it to be, and I definitely do feel it was a bit deceptive for them to state the news about Far Cry in terms of the way you could share it with friends and in the way that they did. But still, it's pretty cool. You can still give friends demos if they want to play the game, and you can play the game with them when you give them those demo codes. Then after that, they showed off Dead Island 2, the sequel to the first Dead Island, and the first Dead Island wasn't rated that good. The game did really well in sales, and I believe that's due to really solid advertising for Dead Island 2. Dead Island 1, because the game got bad reviews. I want to say it had like a 50 or 60% on Metacritic, so it got pretty bad reviews, but it sold well, and apparently there was a decent amount of people who liked the game. So they're making a sequel, and hopefully for people who are interested in this game, the game will be better than the first one, which again, as I said before, got pretty bad reviews. Then after this, they had an announcement alongside Tim Schafer, and Grim Fandango is going to come out for the PS4, and this was again another pretty big announcement. I never played Grim Fandango, but people who have said it was a great game, and this will do well for well, this will do well with fans of the game as well as people who are interested in the game that have never played it. So it was a good move for Sony to get this game for the PS4. After news about Grim Fandango, Sony showed off their upcoming indie games coming out for the PS4, and some of these games included Hotline Miami 2, which, you know, the first game got really good praise, so a lot of people are greatly anticipating the sequel to the first Hotline Miami. And outside of all the other indie games that they showed off, including a game called Not a Hero, which looks like a pretty cool shooter, the biggest indie game that they showed, in my opinion, was No Man's Sky. So looking forward to this game, and the big news was that it will make its console debut on the PS4. So by that means that it's going to come out for other consoles too, but it's going to be coming out first for the PS4. And we don't know how long, you know, that will be true for the PS4 in terms of the PS4 being the only console that will have No Man's Sky. You know, whether that will be for a few weeks or a few months or even a whole year. But overall, I'm really looking forward to playing this game. This game looks amazing, and I can't believe it's being done by a team of less than 10 people, because this looks so much better than a lot of the AAA games that are coming out soon that are being made by teams that are much bigger in size. And this game just looks amazing, so I can't wait to finally play it when it releases. They showed off Suda51's new game called Let It Die. It's coming out in 2015. There wasn't that many details said about the game or that much shown about the game, but still, it's still a good thing to see more new IPs coming for the PS4. Alright, so with all these game announcements, Sony was on a really big roll. You know, just games after games after games. It was a great conference up until this point, because at this point they brought up Sean Layden, who's pretty much a new Jack Tretton, who he replaced his position, and he was talking about a lot of stats for the PS4. Apparently there's, I think it was over 90% of PS4 users are on PSN, and there was, you know, more stats about how many times the share button has been used. I want to say it was over 200 million times or something like that. You know, just stats that are interesting stats, but are still, you know, pretty boring. Then he talked more and more. This was a really strange, I guess you'd say the way they placed this news was strange, because the show was on such a great roll, and then it just went to a complete halt with all this talking, and it just went on and on. It felt, I believe it was only for about 5 to 8 minutes, but it felt like it was 20 minutes because it was just getting so boring. And I felt that all these stats would have been better during the first part of the show, because it would have made the flow of the show go from, you know, small to big. But with the way they placed it, it went from big to small. And it was just really strange the way they put this news in between the gaming news for the PS4 for this year. Now, alongside all these stats, as well as announcements that services like apps like YouTube will be coming to the PS4, Sony also announced that the PlayStation TV will be coming to North America, and it will be $99. And this is a great price for a really interesting device, and I think it will do well here in North America, since I could see a lot of people just buying it up, you know, be able to play Vita games on your TV. And it looks like a pretty cool device, especially for the price. I mean, you can't beat a $100 device. So this news was good, especially for people who live in America and were interested in the PlayStation TV, but were wondering whether or not the device will be coming here to North America. Now, after they talked about PlayStation TV, they went back. It seemed like they were going back to talking about games, because after this they showed off, because after that they showed off Mortal Kombat X, and a lot of Mortal Kombat fans are really excited for this game. So it was good to see, at least for them, to see Sony showing off this game at their conference. After they talked about Mortal Kombat, you know, people thought, okay, here we go. They're going to talk about, you know, going back to talking about games. But everybody was wrong who said that, since they went to talking about this new video series coming to the PS4 called Powers, and they brought this guy on stage who kind of reminded me of the Penguin from Batman, the way he was built, and he was bald too. I shouldn't make fun of people by the way they look, but that's who he reminded me of. But they were talking about this new video series called Powers for a really long time, and it was just really boring. Especially, if you're, for people who are like me, who didn't really care anything about this new video series or any video series coming to these consoles pretty much. But it seemed like it took up a greater amount of time for the show than it really did. I want to say that they were talking about Powers for maybe 7-8 minutes, but it just felt like twice that amount of time just due to how boring it was, at least for me. And I just wanted it to be over because I had no interest in this new Powers video series coming to the PS4. Then after that, they showed off Ratchet & Clank, and I got excited again because I thought that it would be a new Ratchet & Clank game coming for the PS4, but it was actually a movie trailer for Ratchet & Clank movie coming out soon. And while I'll more likely see the movie, especially considering the fact that I was a big Ratchet & Clank fan during the PS2 days, and I love those Ratchet & Clank games for the PS2, I didn't really need to see a movie trailer during the Sony conference. I mean, I felt that it was kind of out of place. I mean, I realized that it's a Sony franchise, but still, it was just weird to see them promote a movie trailer. If you're gonna show off Ratchet & Clank, show off a brand new Ratchet & Clank game for the PS4 that was made for the PS4 in mind, a new current gen Ratchet & Clank. But they didn't show that. Apparently the very first Ratchet & Clank is gonna be remade for the PS4 too. So that's good for people who never played the first Ratchet & Clank, since it was a good game, at least for its time. But still, it was weird for them to show off that movie trailer, in my opinion, during their conference. After this though, they did go back to talking about games. They showed off a trailer for The Last of Us Remastered, and again, if people never played the Last of Us on the PS3 and they have a PS4 now, then this is good news for those people, since it was pretty much a top-rated game for last year, and it'll be good for people to finally have a chance to play this game, since there's a lot of Xbox 360 only people who went over to the PS4 and never got the chance to play The Last of Us. So this will be a good remaster or remake for these people, and as well as people who are just big fans of The Last of Us who want to play the game again with better graphics. After this, they showed off a new trailer for Metal Gear Solid 5. Again, it wasn't really anything that different, and I believe the trailer that they showed off for Metal Gear Solid 5 was online the previous night. So there wasn't really much new about this trailer, but again, it was good to see Metal Gear Solid 5 have a presence at a PlayStation conference, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that Metal Gear Solid franchise is known on the PlayStation consoles more than the Xbox consoles due to it going back to the PS1 days. So this game will definitely be big for the PS4, and it will be interesting to see how well this game does and how much it will push people to get the PS4 when it releases. Then after Metal Gear Solid 5, they showed off a trailer for Grand Theft Auto 5, which is being remade for the new consoles, the PS4 and the Xbox One. But since it was at Sony's conference, people assumed that it was only being remade for the PS4, which was a smart move by Sony. It reminded me of last year's announcement for Kingdom Hearts 3, which, made a lot of people think that it was only going to be on the PS4 due to Sony showing off that game. But that game was multi-platform, and Grand Theft Auto 5 will be multi-platform. This new remake for Grand Theft Auto 5 will be multi-platform on the PS4 and Xbox One. But again, there was a lot of people who thought it would be exclusive for the PS4 due to Sony showing it off. So again, that was a good move by Sony. I'm expecting this game to do well. There's a lot of people who either skipped Grand Theft Auto 5 or who bought Grand Theft Auto 5 but couldn't play it that much due to the new consoles releasing like a couple weeks after the release of Grand Theft Auto 5. So this game should do really well on these new consoles, Xbox One and PS4. And it's going to be interesting to see the sales of this game, see how well it does in comparison to how well Grand Grand Theft Auto 5 did on the Xbox 360 and PS3 in the same time frame. You know, the same launch period. You know, like the first month that it comes out. It'll be interesting to see how well it does in comparison to how well Grand Theft Auto 5 on the PS3 and 360 did during the first month that was released last year. Then they showed off Batman Arkham Knight. Cannot wait for this game. Looks so good. I'm a big fan of the Batman Arkham game, so I'm really looking forward to this game. And they showed it off during the PS4 Sony conference, so it looks like it's going to be tied to the PS4 console too. Again, Sony's doing a smart move by tying up so many multi-platform games to be advertised or at least have exclusive content on their system, especially since this year 2014 there isn't that many really big AAA exclusives coming to the PS4. So for Sony to make so many deals with some multi-platform games coming out this year is a really smart move. And again, this game looks great. I believe the world of Batman Arkham Knight is 5 times bigger than the previous Batman games on the 360 and PS3. So this game, I'm really looking forward to this game. It was recently delayed to 2015, so I definitely feel that it will probably be one of the best games of 2015, if not the Gotti of 2015. But there's so much stuff coming out in 2015 that I can't say that right now, because there's just 2015 is just so packed with games. But Batman Arkham Knight will definitely be up there, at least from the way it looks right now. Then to end off Sony's conference, Sony showed off a trailer for Uncharted 4. People believe that it was CGI, but apparently it was all gameplay footage, which is amazing. Again, as I said previously, maybe not in this episode, but in previous episodes, if games are looking this good now in the early part of this gen, just imagine how games will look 3-4 years ago. 3 to 4 years from now on these current gen systems. I mean, Uncharted 4 is the first Uncharted, and it might be the last based on what they're saying about it. But even so, like, Uncharted 4 will not be the best looking game on the PS4 in terms of the PS4's complete life cycle. So just imagine how good games will look on a PS4 5 to 6 years from now. It'll be crazy. It looks great. Hopefully it plays good, because from what it looks, it looks like it'll be very quick time event heavy. But again, that's just based on the trailer, especially due to it looking very CGI instead of actual gameplay. But apparently it was gameplay, which is still amazing to me. So hopefully the game is good, and hopefully it will be a good debut for Uncharted on the PS4. Alright, so overall Sony's conference was very good in terms of games. They showed a lot of games, not that many exclusives, and it was a bit strange to not see Drive Club at their E3 conference, but overall it was still a good conference in terms of the gaming content that they showed. And the beginning of the show was great. It had a great flow, and to be honest, it made me more excited than Microsoft's conference, at least during the first third of Sony's conference. It made me more excited or more pumped than Microsoft's conference. But what really messed up Sony's conference this year was the flow. It was doing so, it had so many good announcements during the beginning, and then in the middle you had all that talk about the services and the new apps coming to the PS4 and all that media talk, especially with the Powers TV series come to the PS4, and that just messed up the whole flow of the show. Like I said before, the games were great. The games that they showed were great. They were solid games, but the media talk and just the talking period about the services and all that other stuff was really boring, and it messed up the flow of the whole show. And I gave, in previous episodes of the D-Pad, the previous seasons of the D-Pad in which I did E3 episodes, I criticized Microsoft for showing a lot of media stuff during their E3 conferences, and during those years I gave Sony a better rating. due to Sony focusing on games during those previous years. But now it seems like things have switched between Microsoft and Sony, with Microsoft showing 100% games and Sony branching off into media and services and apps. And I would be a hypocrite if I didn't give Sony a lower grade due to them showing off so much stuff about media and apps. So while Sony's conference had a lot of great looking games, due to the media talk and all the services talk and just the talking period messing up the flow of the show, I'm gonna have to give Sony's E3 conference for this year, 2014, a C. Alright, now let's talk about the last company for this episode of the DPAT, this E3 2014 episode of the DPAT, and that company is Nintendo. Now, Nintendo had their own presentation, their own Nintendo digital event on Tuesday of that week of E3, and they started off their presentation by showing off a Robot Chicken bit. I'm not a big Robot Chicken fan, but I still thought it was pretty funny, and it was just different from what we're usually used to during these E3 presentations, so it set the tone off pretty positively. Now after this, they showed off Super Smash Brothers for the Wii U with Reggie and Iwata having a battle. It was, again, pretty funny, and again, like I said before, that Robot Chicken bit set the tone for the whole show, since it was really a funny and playful show. But it was funny seeing Reggie and Iwata battle it out. You know, I didn't know what to expect when they first showed them off, you know, facing off with one another, but then when they showed off Smash Brothers, it all clicked to me. Now they also showed off the NFC Amiibo feature for Smash Brothers, and showed off Iwata putting a Mario figurine onto the Wii U gamepad, and that helping him out in the Super Smash Brothers battle. And overall, looks like a good feature, but since the Wii U gamepad has that NFC chip built into it, it seems like whoever has the Wii U gamepad will have a pretty decent size advantage in Super Smash Bros. Against somebody who's using a regular gamepad or Wiimote. But we'll see what happens when the game releases in terms of how that will work out. Now, after talking about Amiibo and talking about how it will be used in other Nintendo games such as Mario Kart 8, which is a smart thing to do, since, you know, you'll have people buying these figurines for multiple Nintendo games instead of just one Nintendo game or one Nintendo series. After they showed that off, we started talking about the new Yoshi game called Yoshi's Woolly World, and this game, in terms of art style, looks great. It seems like it'll be a great game. Nintendo's platformers, especially the 2D platformers, are usually pretty solid games, but in terms of the art style is what really makes this game stand out, and it's made, you know, completely out of yarn, and it just looks unique. And I love platforms. I'm a big platformer fan, so I'm definitely looking forward to this new Yoshi game that's going to come out soon. After that, they showed off a new Toad game that's coming out this year. It's called Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. And in this game, they pretty much took the Toad levels in Super Mario 3D World and put them into one complete game. And those levels are pretty good. I enjoyed those levels. And while I don't think a game with just those levels will be as great as Super Mario 3D World was, it should definitely be a solid game. So I'm really looking forward to playing Toad's Treasure Tracker when it releases this year. After they showed off the new Toad game, they showed off, which I feel was a megaton, they showed off the new Zelda for the Wii U. And while they didn't show off that much of it, they showed off like the gameplay world, and it's open world. It looks absolutely stunning, and at first it didn't seem real. It seemed like it was just like a concept, but it was real. It was real gameplay, and it just looks amazing. My jaw dropped when I saw that. I'm not even a big Zelda fan at all, but that just looks amazing. And the game's gonna come out next year, 2015, and I definitely think that it'll help the Wii U, get a boost in sales. You know, it might not be that big a boost in sales, especially since the console isn't doing well at all right now, but the game looks great. And that announcement was the first time that in which my jaw dropped when watching E3, in terms of any of the presentations, Microsoft, Sony's, or Nintendo's, which I'm talking about now. That was the first time which my jaw literally dropped, was when I saw that Zelda footage. It just looked incredible. Man, I cannot wait to see that game in action. Then after they showed off the new Zelda, they showed off Bayonetta 2, and Bayonetta 2 looks good, at least, at least according to fans who've played the first Bayonetta and liked the first Bayonetta. And speaking of the first Bayonetta, the very first Bayonetta game will be included into Bayonetta 2 for the Wii U, which is great since there's a lot of people who have a Wii U who've never played the first Bayonetta game. So that's really good news for people who never played it and are interested in Bayonetta 2. And after they showed off Bayonetta 2, they went to Hyrule Warriors, which is pretty much Zelda Dynasty Warriors. Not really interested in the game, but it does look like it'll be a fun pick up and play game, and I know that some people are definitely looking forward to playing it. So it definitely looks like it will do pretty well, but I don't think it will push people to buy a Wii U at all. But overall, it looks like a pretty decent game. Another game they showed off, which I'm not really interested in, was Xenoblade Chronicles. And again, it does seem like a decent game for people who are interested in Xenoblade, but I'm not. And I don't think it's going to sell that many Wii U consoles either. So it's a good game to show off for fans who, the biggest Wii U fans who are interested in those types of games. Now, after it showed off the new Xenoblade Chronicles, the new Xenoblade Chronicles X, they then showed off this Mario Maker game. And it's funny because this Mario Maker game was, I guess you could say, leaked before their E3 presentation. And I showed it off to my friend. I showed a picture of, I guess, a booth that had Mario Maker logos. Yeah, I think it was a booth that had Mario Maker logos on it. I showed a picture of it to my friend, and he said that, hey, if they're really making a Mario Maker game, a game in which you could, at least at the time, he assumed it was, we assumed that it was a game in which you can make Mario levels. And he said that, if they make a game like that for Wii U, then I'll buy a Wii U. And it came true. They revealed Mario Maker is a game where you can make Mario levels and hopefully share them with other people online or even your friends. But I say hopefully because we talk about Nintendo. Nintendo's usually behind the times when it comes to online features. But I mean, it just seems inevitable that online sharing will be inside this game. So we'll see what happens. But overall, this game looks interesting. Making your own levels sounds like fun, especially when you get to make the levels and then give the controller off to a friend or somebody else in the same room and have them play them, especially if you make troll levels, levels that are harder than they really look. But overall, it's just a unique game, a game that we didn't really expect to be for the Wii U, and I'm definitely going to pick it up since I love platformers, and I love Mario platformers, especially 2D platformers, so definitely going to buy the game when it releases. Then after it showed off Mario Maker, they showed off a game called Splatoon. It's a shooter, but it's not a violent shooter, which I think is really smart on Nintendo's part, because while Splatoon is a shooter, and while, believe it or not, I'm pretty sure you guys know, but other people may not realize this, but there's a lot of kids who play M-rated shooters. So due to that, there's a lot of kids who grew up on these M-rated shooters. So what Nintendo's doing, what Nintendo's seemingly doing, I should say, with Splatoon is that they're making a shooter that is not violent, so that it could go or fit in line with all the other Nintendo games. But at the same time, it's a shooter, so people or at least kids who like Call of Duty or Halo or those other type of shooters will maybe be interested in this Splatoon game, or at least families will not feel as if this game is too violent for their kids to play, even if their kids might be playing shooters behind their backs, maybe at friends' houses or something like that. So I think that this is a smart move by Nintendo, making a shooter that's not violent, and it looks fun. I mean, the whole gameplay format in which you have to spray ink on the territory to, you know, make that your territory. Seems cool. And then at the same time, how you spray ink on your territory and also use the ink to travel across from different parts of the level is cool. And it seems, you know, like it's really designed well, like they planned out this game in advance, because it just fits so well. You know, ink is slippery, so you slide in, it helps you travel, but at the same time you're covering bases with your ink too. So it's kind of like using the ink in multiple ways in the game, and it's just sounds really clever, and it seems like it's a really fun game, and I'm definitely looking forward to playing it when it finally releases onto the Wii U next year. Alright, and that was pretty much it in terms of the games that they showed off during their digital event conference. Well, excuse me, Nintendo's digital event conference. Overall, it was a short show, and now that I'm talking about it in front of the camera to you guys, I realized that they didn't really show off that many games, at least not that many in comparison to Microsoft and Sony. But their whole presentation just flowed very well, and it was short and sweet. And, you know, there wasn't any point in which I felt as if I was being, you know, as if I was bored, as if I found the things that they were showing at this digital event boring. You know, it just flowed very well. It was games after games, and their conference was the only conference in which I was surprised by something. You know, I was surprised by Zelda, and again, you know, that surprised me, while Microsoft's conference didn't have any surprises for me, and neither did Sony. So I feel that Nintendo's showing, even though it was short and even though it wasn't an actual conference, I felt that the whole presentation was much better than Sony's and Microsoft's, because I actually, you know, enjoyed it 100%. You know, I didn't feel as if I was, again, like I said before, as if I was being bored by what they showed, or I didn't feel as if what they showed was 100% things that I expected. You know, in terms of Microsoft's conference, I wasn't really bored when I was watching their conference, but pretty much everything they showed at their conference I expected. Nothing was surprising. And the same was true for Sony's, but on top of Sony's conference not having any surprising content, in my opinion, they also kind of bored me in that middle there when they talked about the media and their apps. Nintendo, though, they showed games that I did expect, but at the same time, they also showed games that I didn't expect, games which surprised me, such as, you know, such as Mario Maker. And while I did expect a new Zelda, I didn't expect the new Zelda to look so good and to be an open world game. That's just crazy to me. So that looks good, and overall, I feel that Nintendo really proved why what they're doing with the digital events and not having a true official E3 conference, why it's a smart move for them. Last year, their whole Nintendo Direct event was a disaster, mainly because of the lag, but this year there wasn't any lag issues, at least when I was watching it, and it was short and sweet, and due to them being able to control their show in their own presentation, their presentation was entertaining. It felt like a true Nintendo show, or at least like something you'll see in a Nintendo game, and I feel that Nintendo's really smart to be doing this, you know. And previously I criticized Nintendo for not having an E3 conference, but now after watching this, I can't criticize them anymore, because what they did at this year's E3 was great. Their show was really entertaining to me, and it had some good good games, even though there weren't that many, and even though their E3 presentation wasn't as long as Sony's and Microsoft's. So again, with all that said, I'm gonna have to give Nintendo's E3 presentation a B+. Alright, and that was my breakdown for each and every E3 presentation. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This period, this 2014 to 2015 period, is going to be a great period for games. No matter what new console you own, the Wii U, Xbox One, or PS4, there's a ton of stuff to look forward to, especially if you own multiple consoles. You know, if you own either all three, or at least a console that has solid game support on top of the Wii U, then you're just in gaming heaven because there's just so much stuff coming out. If you own the console with good game support like the Xbox One or PS4, then you get in solid looking exclusives on top of solid looking multi-plats. And if you own a Wii U on top of that, then you're getting some solid looking Nintendo games, and you're just, like I said, you're just in gaming heaven. And again, as I said last year, it's sad to see so many grown men, people 30 plus years old, fighting over, just my console is better than yours and all this other stuff, fighting over sales figures. And it's sad to me because there's just so much good stuff coming out to all three consoles. It's like, why waste your time arguing when we could be excited about the content that's going to come out soon for all the consoles. I mean, it's just sad, but overall that stuff will always go on, and there's really no stopping that stuff. People will be people. Fortunately, grown men will be continuously acting like middle school kids, at least when it comes to video games. So really can't change that, but it's sad, especially after this E3 was so good. I mean, I do feel like Sony's conference did have problems, but even their conference had really solid games, and all three conferences or presentations had really solid games. So this is going to be a really good year. 2014 and 2015 are going to be great years for gaming. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed this E3 episode of D-Pad, and until next time, I'll see you. Alright, goodbye everybody.
Oh.